There is a moment that comes to most people at least once when they have acquired what they thought they wanted and find that the wanting has not stopped. The promotion arrives. The house is bought. The number reaches the figure that was supposed to be the threshold, and the relief, if it comes at all, is brief. Then the wanting begins again, pointing at a new target. Diogenes of Sinope lived in a ceramic jar in Athens and owned almost nothing. When Alexander the Great offered to grant any wish, Diogenes asked him to step aside. He was blocking the sun. Thoreau built a cabin in the woods and lived there for over 2 years to understand what a life genuinely required. Epictetus was born a slave and taught that he was the freest man in Rome. 6 teachings on wealth and simplicity from the people who examined the question most rigorously, and what they discovered about the thing that most people spend their whole lives searching for. Teaching 1. The person who needs least is closest to the gods and furthest from fear. Diogenes was not performing poverty. He was conducting a philosophical experiment. His argument was precise. Every object you acquire becomes something you must protect. Every comfort you depend on becomes a vulnerability. The more your well-being relies on external things, possessions, status, the opinion of others, the more points of failure your happiness contains. The person who genuinely needs little cannot be threatened by its removal. That is the only real freedom. Alexander the Great, the conqueror of Persia, master of the known world, rides out to see Diogenes, who is lying in the sun near his jar. Alexander says, "Ask for anything, and I will give it." Diogenes answers, "Stand out of my sun." The crowd laughs. Alexander does not. He rides away and says, "If I were not Alexander, I would be Diogenes." Teaching 2. The desire for more is not the desire for the thing. It is the desire for the feeling the thing promises, and that feeling cannot be purchased. Epicurus, widely misunderstood as a philosopher of pleasure, actually taught one of history's most precise analyses of desire. He distinguished natural and necessary desires from vain ones, wealth beyond sufficiency, fame, status. The third category is a trap by nature. It cannot be satisfied because it is not about the thing. It is about a feeling of security and significance that no amount of acquisition can actually produce. Seneca articulated the same insight with characteristic sharpness. In a letter to Lucilius, he describes staying above a noisy bathhouse, the crowd, the hawkers, the grunts of weightlifters. He wrote, "I can tolerate all of this. What I cannot tolerate is the pretense that I need silence to think." The person who has trained their inner life does not require the arrangement of the world. The person who has not will find no arrangement sufficient. Teaching 3. What you own, in the deepest sense, owns you. Thoreau went to Walden Pond with a precise question. What does a human life actually require? He built his own cabin, grew his own food, kept meticulous accounts of his expenses. What he discovered was that the average laborer worked most of their year simply to maintain the lifestyle they had acquired, a lifestyle that demanded more labor to sustain than the person would have needed if they had chosen differently. The cost of the thing was the portion of your life you traded for it. The cabin measured 10 feet by 15. It contained a bed, a desk, 3 chairs, 1 for solitude, 2 for friendship, 3 for society, as Thoreau noted, and a small fireplace. He moved in on the 4th of July, 1845, by deliberate choice. The symbolic statement was clear: independence from what, if not the accumulation society called success? He stayed 26 months and concluded that a man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can afford to let alone. Teaching 4. Wealth is not a number. It is the ratio between what you have and what you need. Epictetus taught this from experience most philosophers only theorized about. Born into slavery, he owned nothing for most of his life, and yet described himself, without irony, as free. His desires had been aligned with what was available. He did not mean resignation. He meant freedom from the tyranny of wanting what he did not have. The gap between what you have and what you think you need is the exact measure of your unhappiness. Close it by acquiring more or by needing less. His master Epaphroditus once grabbed Epictetus's leg and began twisting it to demonstrate power over the slave's body. Epictetus said calmly, "You will break it." Epaphroditus kept twisting. It broke. Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you?" The story illustrates the Stoic distinction between what is in your control, your response, your will, and what is not, your body, your possessions. The leg that could be broken was never really his. The mind that watched it break was Teaching 5. Simplicity is not deprivation. It is the removal of what obscures what actually matters. Thoreau was specific about what he found after reducing his life to its essentials. Not emptiness, not deprivation. Clarity. The time that had been given to maintaining a more complicated life became available for thinking, walking, observing, writing, being present to a particular quality of light on a particular morning. The subtraction revealed what the accumulation had been covering. He wrote, "Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify." The Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi beauty, found in imperfection and impermanence, offers a counterweight to the accumulation imperative. The tea master Sen no Rikyu built his practice around this. The most refined environment was one stripped to its essentials, where nothing competed for attention. The rough tea bowl was valued not despite its irregularities, but because of them they made visible the process of its making. Simplicity here is not austerity. It is a sensibility that perceives more in less. Teaching 6. The question is not whether you have enough. It is whether you know what enough feels like. Seneca's Epistle 18 contains an urgent practice. Set aside several days each year to live as if you had lost everything. Eat the food of the poor. Wear rough clothing. Sleep without luxury. Not because poverty is better, but because the fear of poverty is often worse than poverty itself. He wrote, "I am not asking you to be poor, but to not be afraid of poverty. The person who has inhabited the thing they fear has extracted its power." Diogenes saw a boy drinking from his hands at the public fountain and immediately threw away his wooden cup, one of the few possessions he had kept. The boy had demonstrated the cup was unnecessary. The story captures something real about the cynic method. The experiment never ended. Every day was another opportunity to discover that something assumed necessary was not. Each time the floor of sufficiency moved lower, the freedom available to the man who needed that much less expanded by exactly that amount. Thoreau left Walden on the 6th of September, 1847. Asked why he had left, having found what he was looking for, his answer was characteristic. He had other lives to live. The point was not the pond. The point was what the pond had demonstrated. That simplicity was not a fixed location, but a practiced orientation. A person who has genuinely understood the arithmetic of their own life does not need to live in a cabin. They have already done the calculation the cabin was designed to make possible. The deeper truth that every tradition, from Diogenes to Thoreau to Epictetus, arrived at is this: the question of enough is not primarily about money. It is about freedom. Every unnecessary desire is a new form of dependence. Every attachment to what you might lose is a new source of fear. The person who has learned to distinguish genuine need from what they have been told to want has found a liberty that no amount of wealth can purchase, because it was never for sale. Whatever version of more you are currently pursuing, the question is not whether the thing itself is worthwhile. The question the traditions ask you to sit with is this: what do you believe it will make possible that is not already possible now? And is that belief about the thing or about yourself? That question, held honestly, has changed the direction of more lives than any philosophy of acquisition ever managed. If this reached you at the right time, subscribe. We explore the deepest questions of human existence every week so you can live yours more fully.